Okay. Oh, JD, start na tayo?
Game.
Game.
Oh yeah, I'll admit everybody's intentions on how
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Around the Bonfire. We're excited to have you tonight. Hope okay lang kayo. Malakas yung ulan past few days, no? So sana okay tayo and we're keeping safe and dry. We're very excited tonight because I am actually welcoming to the show someone that I've known for a very very long time. From when we started my career, magkakilala na kami, and was pleasantly surprised, no, a few years ago when we started reconnecting, no, about startups and in companies. No? So, yun, very excited to have with us on the show the CEO of Philippine Digital Asset Exchange, Nichel Gaba.
Hi
Or-
Dina, hi JD. Thank you
All
for
right.
inviting me.
Thank you. Hi, Nichelle. How are you today? Kamusta yung day mo?
Okay naman. So today I think is has been quite long. But I guess that's pretty normal, no, for a startup that's still hustling to get there.
That's true. That's true. Okay, so sige. So before we take a look at your startup journey, no, maybe you can talk to us. How did you start your career? So saan ka nagsimula sa before PDAX, no? Ano yung ginagawa mo before PDAX?
Well, so I graduated 13 years ago. Obviously, magka-batch tayo. So I graduated in '09, and at the time, I really wanted to be in finance. And that's really because I felt na medyo mas numbers kind of guy ako eh. So I felt na that's where my strength was. So I joined HSBC in 2009 as a management trainee. It's a type of program where you kind of get exposed to different departments, different business lines, and eventually I ended up in treasury and the trust department, and kind of that's where I built my career.
And you mentioned, no, na interested, you mentioned na numbers guy ka, no? Kaya parang natuwa ka na going into finance. What about the numbers did you find interesting, no? Kasi hindi ako yung kabaliktaran eh. So I want to know what made you find numbers interesting.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, parang I think I was just generally risk averse. No, I felt na I was, I guess, sa school I was doing much better in quantitative work than non-quant. So parang it was a comfort zone for me. Fortunately, I when I ended up in it, I mean, I found it very worthwhile and somewhat enjoyable. So yeah, I think that really was it.
Okay, okay. And may teaser na, no, somewhat enjoyable. So what led you to shift from working in the corporate world to building a startup naman?
Siguro when it stopped becoming enjoyable. I think kasi nung um, and I guess this happens a lot, no, when you join the corporate world. Um, when you join a big organization that has very fixed na, objectives and goals, you start to realize that not a lot of the things you do impact the objectives or the direction of the company. So you might start a career having a lot of ideas and a lot of plans for the company, but then eventually you start to realize that because you're not making as much of an impact, you're kind of sacrifice, or like you're killing your ideas along the way, and like parang you become less creative, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Like parang there's a there's joy in stability, but at the time I felt na I really needed a change. I was with HSBC for about 5 years na then, and kind of nakita ko na yung where things will go, where, and yeah, I really asked myself, is this what I wanted to do forever? And your answer to that was no. So I decided to leave and go to business school.
Okay.
Sige. Parang there's a lot to unpack there, Michelle. But wanted to dive deeper, especially before starting PDAX. Was there any particular problem specific to the banking industry that you are keen in solving?
You know, uh, that's a no, no. That's a great question. Kasi, um, everybody who's worked in financial services knows na there's a lot of inefficiency in financial services. Whenever even you seem to na borrowing and lending, you have to consolidate everything in a bank, right? And because you're consolidating everything, you're very reliant on record keeping that they're the same everywhere. Now, that's why actually sa banks you'll notice parang a lot of the jobs in banks have to do with accounting and reconciliation because they constantly have to keep checking stuff. Now, um, uh, in some ways efficient naman siya, no? It allowed the financial markets to really grow, no, by having intermediaries. But then I think umabot na siya sa point now where intermediaries are actually preventing things to grow, right? A good example there is parang because it's so expensive to put up bank branches. We don't have bank branches everywhere in the Philippines, right? And as a result, may mga may mga kababayan tayo in far-flung areas that don't have access to banking services. So may mga ganong inefficiencies that I thought were unsolvable until until I came across crypto and blockchain technology, and I realized, oh wow, maybe this could be the solution to everything.
Got it. So later on, we'll circle back to that, no, na yung focusing on decentralized finance and crypto. But wanted to step back a bit, no, given your vast experience in the corporate world. I'm curious, and nag-business school ka pa, ano siya. Any skills na particularly nakuha mo from working in a corporate company that translated or even did not translate now that you're a startup CEO?
Well, I think definitely meron. No? So I'll share first siguro what translated well. Um, Managing people is super duper duper important, right? I think it's a superpower, right? Like parang you may be the best lawyer, the best accountant, the best doctor, ganyan. But if you can manage people well, you can multiply your capabilities, right? If you can manage 10 people, then that's 10x of you, right? Or in a large organization, that's 100x or 100,000x of you. So learning how to manage people, I think, takes a lot of practice. And the problem with learning it in a startup setting is that you can only afford to make so many mistakes in a startup environment. So sa corporate world, I think I really benefited from managing people there, and parang that I guess made things a lot less painful nung nasa startup. And maybe one thing that probably did not translate so well is that in a corporate environment, kasi um, you take a if you work there long enough, you take a lot of things for granted. Na, systems are already in place. Things are generally more efficient, so you don't have to roll your sleeves as much, and you just parang trust the process. Pero sa startup, you can't trust the process because if you trust the process and the process is not there, you fail, right? So I guess yun, there was definitely a big shift in approach.
Got it. Ang ganda ng sinabi mo kanina, Nichelle, na in terms of working in a startup, since you have limited runway, so palaging kailangan choosing the right battles. But I'm curious, circling back to what you mentioned earlier, what made you decide to ultimately focus on crypto and decentralized finance, knowing that there are other ways naman solving those inefficiencies that you mentioned?
Yeah. So yeah, and Dino probably knows this because we've known each other 13, maybe 12, 15 years now. I'm a very risk averse person. I don't like taking risk. Like, parang, kung pwedeng sure ball free throw, then yun na yun, right? Um, but I think with crypto, na-champukan ko yung crypto at the time when uh, I was in business school, and it was a natural career pivot point. And also during business school, I took a lot of economic history classes. Parang
Mm.
that gave me a good appreciation for what Bitcoin can do, right? And I guess na-champuhan rin na my background in HSBC was quite unique in that it allowed me to see the problems very, very clearly until I realized na actually I probably am in the best position to try and solve the problems that I saw with the tools that are currently available. So that's when I decided na okay, I'll give it a shot. Let's raise seed funding. If we're able to raise seed funding, then game startup na. If not, then I'll stay in the corporate world. So yeah, long story short, things fell into place, and PDAX was born in early 2018.
Oo, grabe. Hindi lang seed funding eh. But I think what was helpful with what Michelle mentioned, no, the transition from being risk averse to taking a look at an opportunity and looking inside yourself and seeing if you are actually the best person that to be able to help solve kung ano yung problems na napapansin. No? It's not just important to spot that opportunity, it's also being honest with yourself if ikaw ba talaga yung best person to be able to solve that opportunity. So yun yung magandang point that
Yeah,
Michelle mentioned.
actually, I'll add to that. No, parang at the time, I really I came to the realization na wait a minute, Nichelle, you're overestimating the risks. Right? Parang minsan nakakatakot eh, yung parang you leave a job, you forgo a paycheck, you're not sure whether you'll make money, or you'll earn anything. But then sometimes you overestimate the risks. And I think that's what I was doing at the time. Parang if PDAX were to fail, I would still be a failed startup founder, and I would still be more experienced and more knowledgeable than if I did not start anything. So parang that was kind of the thinking also there, which gave me a lot of comfort in pursuing it when I did.
Correct, correct. I will add ko lang nga yung ano eh, yung it's not enough na you think of that and tell it to yourself. Another thing is actually going and doing it, no? So I think yun din yung admirable, I think, over startup founders. Ako, I realized very early in my career na hindi talaga ako bagay maging founder. I think mas bagay talaga ako maging builder to help founders, no? Well, like Michelle and others that I've worked with. So yun, thanks for that insight. So I guess delving deeper into PDAX, Michelle, and ano na siya ngayon? Hindi na siya seed na lang ngayon. We all know the growth that PDAX underwent. Even in this pandemic, nakita natin no paano nag-grow yung PDAX. So I guess I want to understand ano yung psyche. So how did you decide, or how do you decide to create products in PDAX?
Mhm. What's interesting is, and I don't know if this is unique to the crypto space. No, um, uh, one of the first things na uh, we're taught, no, in starting a company is that you have to find product market fit. Okay? But in the crypto space, interestingly enough, yung product market fit changes, on a monthly basis. Back in 2018, it was still okay for exchanges to be a Bitcoin exchange. Actually, yung nomenclature then was, Mount Gox was a Bitcoin exchange. Coin.ph was a Bitcoin exchange. But then, fast forward, there were all these other cryptocurrencies, so the product had to shift right away. Um, and in 2018, we were focused on ICOs. In 2019, we were focused on DeFi. In 2020, we were focused on play to earn. Now we're focused on NFTs. Parang moving target siya, no? So the way that historically we had approached product development was understanding what the market needed at the time, right? And trying to build. The problem was when we finally delivered our product to the market, it's always just a little bit out of date. Okay, so yeah, so in that sense, we were very reactive. Maybe with the benefit of hindsight, what we would do more is try to anticipate really where the market is going and build for that. So yeah, that's one learning that we had.
Cool, okay. And interesting nga yun, no? You mentioned na to be able to anticipate where the market is shifting or where the market is going. So, to your mind, parang looking back or ewan ko kung looking forward, parang what do you feel are the decisions that you made in building PDAX that made the biggest impact on its growth? Kasi laki na niya ngayon talaga from before, right? So, ano kaya yun?
Maybe it was well, I think it was a lot of things, no? But yung very first siguro decision point was brought about by yung realization na the product that we're trying to build was too complicated for the I guess the skill set that we had at the time, right? Na parang, oh shucks, hindi pala kaya ni PDAX gawin to lahat, right? And that was important because generally speaking, for tech companies, yung intellectual property is so valuable, right? The owning the rights to the platform, etc. It's super valuable. So we had to make an early trade-off to partner for components of the platform. Now we could not build ourselves, and in so doing, still meet our target launch dates. I think that was important. No, maybe if we had attempted to build everything ourselves in day one, we might not have rolled out with a working product and we would have failed as a startup. So I thought that was one important decision, and there were many since, I guess.
Okay, okay. Sige, ito naman, no? So yan, yung decisions. If I ask you about surprises naman, what surprises have come about as you have been building PDAX? Ano na, ilang years na? 4 years? 4 years na. So what has surprised you in building PDAX?
Parang there's so many surprises, no? And I think this is a feature of the startup space rather than an exception. Parang there's always surprises. Today you're trying to build something, and then tomorrow you're rolling it out. The day after tomorrow, may complaint yung clients, it's not working, blah blah blah. You're gonna have to deal with it. Um, so siguro one thing I realized that was kind of surprising to me was that people are resilient. Okay? I think sa corporate world, I did not see that, right? Like parang I was used to working with people whose roles were very defined and they play those roles well, and that's all credit to them. But in the startup scene and also specifically in PDAX, it was a pleasant surprise na turned out that people were actually very resilient, very passionate about what we're trying to do, and as a result, we're able to weather a lot of the early storms. So yeah, I think a lot of the good surprises I found were in realizing we actually have the right team to go pursue this mission with.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I think JD, may questions ka pa?
Actually,
So
maraming naging surprises, right?
Oh, sige, go lang.
You
Meron
like,
pa.
okay, so there was that. Obviously, when you work, when you start a company with people, right? You have co-founders. You expect na, you're gonna see everything through, right? So it was also a big surprise that, in the case of PDAX, we had a divergence in strategy that led to it not working out, right? So that was a big surprise. The market, crashing when it did was a big surprise. We've also had signed term sheets from VCs pulled, no? And then all of a sudden, akala mo you have, a year's worth of runway, biglang 3 weeks na lang pala. And then, yeah, it's just a lot of stuff. Like, parang, I remember at the time, we also ended up getting a pretty important revenue stream, right, when we really, really, really needed it, right? So, so many surprises along the way.
given the roller coaster ride, Michelle, that has been the 4 years experience. No? I guess that's the backward the reflection naman. But forward thinking, what are you most excited about PDAX next year? Or even this year?
I think uh, the the most exciting thing for me right now is getting our product to our desired state, and that's because when you in, in the early days of a startup, right, when you're hustling, trying to get to that immediate milestone, which is your MVP, trying to get that first customer, trying to get to break even. When you're in that mode, no, survival mode there, right? So you don't really have the luxury of thinking very long term. Even when we had raised yung most recent round of funding, we then we didn't have still the no luxury of thinking long term, because at the time the markets were super hot, so we always had to just find ways to deliver the features or the capabilities that were required at the time by our customers. Pero now na, we have a longer runway. We have um, we have a pretty inactive na market. We can really build for the long term. So I'm really excited by that, because I think na if we get our product right, or if we get our product in terrific shape, we can capture a lot more growth than we had done in previous years.
Nice. Yeah, I know I asked the question, but I'm super excited to seeing the, the things happening firsthand. No? Any, Michelle, any trends you're seeing here in the Philippines or even in Southeast Asia that you are curiously following?
Um, right now, we're seeing a very important shift in fintech. Um, uh, Banks and I guess financial institutions in general, no, have historically been uh, in situations where they could monetize their relationships, right? Their customer relationships. Na parang if you're in BDO, it's very hard for you to move funds to BPI, and so your entire financial service requirements is met by one institution. Now, there's this trend called open banking or open finance, which actually I think it's beneficial for everybody, right? That all the banks just have to um, uh, develop and conform to the same standards of APIs, so that everybody can try and build seamlessly with one another. I think this will change the game permanently, right? Because it will lower a lot of yung barriers that prevent competition. it will really it will really um, enable startups to compete immediately with the likes of BDO, BPI, or even Gcash. No, and yeah, that's something that is not happening in like 5 years. It's happening now, right? So, if you're thinking about whether you should start a fintech company, or find a job somewhere, you might want to consider starting a company now, right? Because opportunities in fintech will be way more than I guess it ever has been, once that's fully in place.
Yeah, sobrang exciting nga, definitely. And thanks for all those answers, no, Nichelle. Sobrang, we're always delighted talking to founders and CEOs like you, knowing all the parang inside stuff, and seeing a glimpse nung how they started. And since we started asking you about your career, no, and how you transitioned, now this is a favorite segment of ours wherein we ask or we let our super producer Pats to ask questions. Go Pats.
First of all, super exciting. What you've talked about, it got me really excited. And I have a lot of friends because I was into fintech now, and they're also trying to like build companies around that space, no. So my question is, if you're a fresh graduate today and you wanted to get a job in the tech industry or even in fintech for that reason, no, how would you go about it?
Um, Shocks. Right now, there aren't a lot of fintech companies out there, right? Super content, right? And you know, we're still so early in the fintech sector that it's very hard for companies to find the perfect candidate for specific roles. In fact, I would say, in product development roles, actually, walang parang nobody really has any leg up. There's no you can't really gain experience, or fully prepare yourself for such a role. So if I were a fresh grad, sorry, a cheap content, no, I'd start even before ka maging fresh grad. Take internships everywhere that you can, right? Because taking internships in tech companies communicates two things. Number one, it shows that you really have the desire or the passion to be in the space. And second is that it communicates that you are eager to learn, right? Which is so important because a lot of the things that you'll be doing would be alien to you in the very early days. Now, if fresh grad ka na, and you want to be in the tech industry, I suggest that um, you start attending meetups. You start reaching out to people who work in the industry or the company na you aspire to join. You communicate your interest. You prove your value. I think the best way to do that is to really immerse yourself in what the company is trying to do, and allow that knowledge and natural interest to show itself when you finally have those interviews. Unfortunately, walang rocket science to this, and because there are way too many there are way too many applicants for the jobs that are available. The cards will always be stacked against those who want to break into the space. Unfortunately.
Oh,
Thank you
grabe.
for
So
that.
yeah, thank you for instilling wisdom sa ating super producer, si Pats, no. So I think to end the show, Michelle, just wanted to know if people want to connect to you or reach out to you, what's the best way to do so?
Best way is through LinkedIn. My name is super duper unique. You probably will not find another Nichel Gaba within 3 degrees. Um, Twitter, I'm not very active on Twitter. There's actually a fake account that has way more users than the real one. So yung Nichel_Gaba, that's not me. Okay. So LinkedIn probably is the best. Yeah.
Okay, oo nga. Grabe yung ano na yun, Twitter following na yun. Parang 6,000 ata yung followers na yun.
Yeah.
Alright. Yeah, sige. So, yeah, well, thank you, Nichelle, for your time. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being around the bonfire with us. And with that, we'd probably like to end with one of your quotes, which I think we resonate with. You mentioned that managing people is a superpower, and I definitely agree with that. Not just in any space, but specifically sa product management, wherein you manage the roadmap of development, but also you manage the people that are developing the specific product. So we super resonated with what you mentioned, and yeah, we can't wait for more news about PDAX. So with that, good night, everyone, and thank you for being around the bonfire.